international community to engage with India and convince them that the decisions that they have made leave not only us less safe, but leave everybody less safe. There's no military solution to Kashmir. There's no military solution to terrorism with the water issue. Water isn't even and should never be considered a weapon of conflict. I'm cognizant of the fact that we commenced late, that there's so many people over here that will have many questions, not only for me, but also for the other members of our delegation. I would suggest that if there are climate-related questions, we've got two fantastic climate representatives here. Otherwise, you can either ask me or anybody else sitting before you, and I'll hand it over to our ambassador to moderate our session.
Thank you very much, sir. Could you kindly identify yourself and the question when asking the question, please? We'll begin from ladies first.
Okay. I'm Lynn Buttos from the European Institute for European Institute for Asian Studies. We already had a discussion this morning, specifically on climate change. But of course, to what extent does that? We already tackled briefly about the Indus Water Treaty. So, but how is this actually going? How are you going to address this in the future? How are you going to make sure that India does not depart from it, and what can we do? Because of course, the climate, also on climate, this will have an issue, as well as on the water.
I'd actually like to bifurcate the two, and on the climate question, I'll ask Sherry or Masade to step in. But on the Indus Water Treaty, we've laid out the stark situation before. As far as the Indus Water Treaty is concerned, this is the gold standard in diplomacy. Our treaty has been replicated in 40 other treaties dealing with water. It has withstood war after war. It has dispute resolution mechanisms with it. There's no space within international law, and there's no space within this treaty for any party to unilaterally depart or make any unilateral decisions. All decisions are to be made through mutual consent. Even if we were to renegotiate, Pakistan never shut the door to, only asked, what would you like to negotiate? But even if we were to renegotiate a treaty, until we were to come to a conclusion in that renegotiation, this treaty would stand. As it is through this treaty that we came up with a unique solution. Rather than relying simply on lower riparian rights, which would have given us lower riparian rights to all three rivers, all six rivers, sorry. Pakistan and India agreed through this treaty to divide the river systems. 3 rivers were given in total to India, and 3 rivers, there's certain rights to the Indian government, but the majority is for Pakistan, and we rely 100% for our water from these remaining rivers. The 3 rivers that they are in their control, they have control of the headworks through which they can, and have been since they made this announcement, either delaying the release of our water or in times of excess, relieving an excess of water. Just a delay of a few days has devastating consequences for our crops. And it means that not only our agriculture is affected, on a humanitarian level, this is the only water supply to Pakistan. In the climate context, we're already, the largest collection of snow and ice was in this region. The last thing we needed was a fault line, a conflict to develop. This should have been an avenue for cooperation. Climate Minister and former Climate Minister will give you sort of a little bit more detail about the challenge we face vis-a-vis climate. It's a stark reality that we're facing before we drew this fault line exactly where it need to be.
Thank you. So I'd only say that, look, if this treaty is in abeyance, then no treaty post-Second World War is worth the piece of paper on which it's printed. Because then any country in the world can now pull out of treaties, because this entire rule-based regime is gone. If it doesn't suit me, I pull out tomorrow. So all the war treaties, all the peace treaties, all the developmental treaties, all the Marshall Plan, they don't mean jack. It's all gone. Because if you're going to allow for one country to pull out of a treaty, a signed treaty, then no country has to abide by any treaty. Number one. Number two, all lower riparian countries they will have to retire their right to water. Because this basically means any upper riparian country has a legitimate right, just because by accident of geography, just because they are higher riparian, that means they can choke the water of the lower riparians all across the world, not just in Pakistan. So this precedent set has implications for Latin America, for South America, for Africa. And what are we going to do about it? I mean, are we going to actually allow for the upper riparian countries to tell the lower riparian countries, boom, you are now going to have food security, you're not going to have food? So for us, we're going to lobby. We're going to lobby with the rest of the world which is lower riparian. It's not just about us. It's about the rights of every single country, Europeans included, who are lower riparian, because you're establishing a new regime of rights which is differential with upper riparian countries. So that's kind of our second point. The third is, what are you attacking? Are you... Yes. Oh, I think, yeah, I go overboard. This man is a very, very good checker. Look, it's not just the water that flows. What flows with the water is a civilization. What flows with this water is climate. We have 13,000 glaciers, 13,000 glaciers. We are having the highest bluffs across the world right now. We're having these glaciers burst into lakes. And when they come down, they bring down boulders half the size of this room from 35,000 feet, which basically devastate civilization that lies underneath. So it's not just water, this control.
It's predating the abeyance. So there's already a problem. How do you see what, or let me put it more specifically, what happened or what did you measure happening after India said that it put the treaty in abeyance? Is there a real difference today as compared to, say, 2 months ago? And then third, somebody has to ask the difficult question, is there anything that the Pakistani government is planning to do to get rid of militant outfits that are so convenient for India to blame Pakistan as a terrorist state?
Thank you for the opportunity to answer all these questions. These exactly the topics that you mentioned are those that we believe that can come up within the context of a comprehensive dialogue with India. If we have a comprehensive dialogue, that means an all-encompassing dialogue. And that gives us an opportunity to discuss all issues, at least bilaterally. As far as the question of Kashmir, given that you're an expert, you know Pakistan's long-standing position is in line with the UN Security Council resolutions and in accordance to international law. Only once we deliver the plebiscite to the people of Kashmir, their right to self-determination, would be our position. India would bring their position as part of a comprehensive dialogue. But I believe there are dueling reasons now that we must address the issue of Kashmir. If India thought that this was an internal issue, they have ensured that this never remains an internal issue. Not only because of the multilateral politics and the commitments to international law and what does the United Nations mean if we can decide that we're not going to apply whatever is inconvenient to us. Not least the promise that we in the international community has made to the people of Kashmir, not least because this is a legacy of partition left over by the colonial powers that still bleeds to this day, has led to wars in the past, and is providing the groundwork for the wars between us, India and Pakistan, even to this day. As far as indigenous terrorism is a challenge within India, it has become a root cause to the indigenous terrorism that was demonstrated in this last terrorist attack, particularly post-2019, with the policies of the state have become even more aggressive, repressive, and suppression. They've moved away from their domestic commitments to the people of Kashmir. In that circumstance, what you're doing is you're creating the perfect environment to breed indigenous terrorism, and that indigenous terrorism will challenge India in a way that no cross-border terrorism ever could. And instead of addressing this issue, We're ignoring the issue and making it worse. If we don't find a solution for Kashmir, and the situation on the ground continues to deteriorate, then the environment is created and the new youth in Kashmir will form the cannon fodder for the terrorist organizations of tomorrow that will continue to perpetuate these attacks. Before I go into the water, I'd like to sidestep onto the terrorist question. As far as what Pakistan has done, now the militant groups that exist on Pakistani soil are a result of the Cold War politics and the geopolitics of the 1980s. Every single group that you can name today, every single one, there's not one that's out of this orbit. Be it Al-Qaeda, be it the Taliban, be it these groups that are of concern to the Indian government. That's the groups of concern to the Indian government. All of them are a result, are the hangover, are the leftover elements of the Afghan jihad ecosystem in Afghan 1. That decision to set up this network of what was called at the time freedom fighters, who were dubbed at the time as the great mujahideen fighting the moral war of the West against the evil Satan. Evil Satan then was the
कोलगेट पेश करता है वेलवेटी चॉकलेट और एक्सोटिक नट्स के मैजिक से भरी आपकी फेवरेट आइसक्रीम पे 50% लेस कैविटीज का टेम्पटिंग ऑफर। पर ये ऑफर सिर्फ रात को ब्रश करने वालों के लिए है। कैविटीज
वेदर रेजिस्टेंट पेंट जो रखे आपकी घर की बैरूनी दीवारों को आंधी और गर्मी के सब असरात से महफूज। मास्टर वेदर रेजिस्टेंट लंबा चलेगा।
ब्रश करो।
कोलगेट की जानिब से आवाम के मफाद में जारी किया गया है।